Hi, and welcome to Thinking Thursday. I'm Bronwyn Lucas, your host, and I am so glad you're here tonight. Tonight, we're going to be joined by Charlotte Watson, an administrator in a public school system. I'll give her introduction a little later, but those of you who've been here before know that we must start out with some deep breathing. Why? The deep breathing allows you to decompress, get rid of some of the stress you may have had from the day. So, what's going to happen is if it's your first time, I'm going to count you in to a slow count of four. You'll breathe in, and to a slow count of four, you'll breathe out. And we'll take three deep cleansing breaths. You're going to breathe in through your nose and out through your nose. Let's get started. Breathe in, two, three, four, out, two, three, four. In, two, three, four, out, two, three, four. In, two, three, four, out, two, three, four. Just a way to decompress. And that's something I recommend you doing throughout the day. If your day gets stressful, take a breath. Take three deep cleansing breaths to slow your body down. And the fact that you're taking time out to do them will slow you down. So it's very, very encouraged. Tonight, we're joined by a dear friend, Charlotte Watson, and we met while working in the public education system just a few years ago in Duncanville. And we will have our teacher panel with Nikki Williams and Kanetra Cooper will be back to join us at our next education forum that we'll do once a month, just seeing what's going on. Nikki is a high school counselor and is still at work, and Charlotte is also still at work, but was able to join us. And Kanetra's daughter is going away to college and she's going to FAMU and they're there this week. I dropped mine off Tuesday, so both she and I are experiencing our babies not being babies anymore.
Aw.
It's a great feeling and it's a little emotional feeling, but more great
A
than
little
that.
bittersweet,
Yeah,
bittersweet.
totally. So, Charlotte, just tell us a little about your experience in education.
Well, I've been in education for quite a while. I started back in '94 in the public school, Dallas ISD. Went on to be in Duncanville ISD, where I was there as a teacher and an administrator, and left the public school and actually went into private educational foundation. I was director, vice president at that establishment where we certified principals. And so we did also professional development training and any kind of educational training, basically. I did that for 17 years and then decided that I wanted to get back into the public private or public charter system. I'd never done charter before. And so I was offered a position there. So I worked in the charter school for 2 years. And then this year I am a proud employee at Terrell ISD as an administrator here on one of their kinder fifth grade campuses. So I think I have kind of come full circle, um, having the experiences on all three different levels, um, at the public school level, at the charter school, as well as the private educational side of it. So there's differences and there are some similarities, but it has all been very gratifying and enjoyable.
Great. Thank you for giving us a little background. And the one thing I can say, some of you may not know, I was a school counselor, and that is, as I said, how we met. And I had the opportunity of working elementary, middle, and high school. Each provides its own challenge, each provides its own likes and dislikes. And I'm a
Absolutely.
crazy one. Middle school was my favorite. And I used to always say, well, here's what I like about middle schoolers. And when I tell people, you know what you need to remember, they're not human beings. And people will think, oh, that's so horrible. I say, no, let me finish. A middle schooler, a building full of middle schoolers is just one hormone colliding into another because they're all
Absolutely.
so hormonal at that age. And everything is
Absolutely.
horrible or great, males and females, they're just a bundle of hormones. And I love
Absolutely.
that age. But I also had that pleasure of working all three levels, elementary, middle, and high. Last night, we also had the opportunity to speak with Nikki Williams. If you joined the show last year, she was one of the educators who was regularly on. And the three of us had a conversation about what's going on, and I wanted to share these insights with you. So, Charlotte, why don't you start off with what are some of the fears and concerns that the school has starting this year?
Well, and it's probably the same, the consensus everywhere across the board, whether you're Republican or Democrat, it's this is not a political issue. This is, a health crisis, and parents are extremely concerned. Um, there's the battle over masking or not masking, but you have children who on a normal day, carry diseases and carry infections and carry viruses and carry bacterias and things like that for the common cold and flu and all of this other stuff. So to throw COVID and Delta and the other RSV strand, it's beginning to be a little overwhelming for parents. There's lots of districts are not mandating masks, particularly what I've seen in the last week. We've been in school since last Wednesday, and particularly parents who are in the health field. I've gotten calls from them. I've gotten campus visits from them. They are really concerned that other children are not wearing masks, that teachers and administrators are not wearing masks. And even though I've been vaccinated, I still wear my mask because there are so many, I know people who have gotten COVID more than one time, and so, and people who have gotten vaccinated but still contract COVID. So this is something that's very, very serious. And so probably across the board, our biggest concern, and not only just with parents, but with our teachers as well, that we have kids, who are not vaccinated, but they are coming to school without a mask on. And we can't tell them to wear a mask. So when they're getting out of the cars and their parents are against masks, you really, in my opinion, everybody is at risk. You're putting everybody at risk. And so, yes, you have the option, to take the shot, parents. But when you don't, again, this is not the thoughts or views of any school districts. This is just the Bible according to Charlotte. And I just believe that's an act of irresponsibility when we choose not to take care of our brother and our sister. We are being irresponsible.
I do agree. And the younger children, and you're in a K-5 building, I believe you said, so
Mm-hmm.
they can't even take the vaccination.
Right.
But they can definitely carry the virus. I've worked elementary, and they are germ carriers. Uh,
Yes.
they
Factories, germ
oh,
factories.
they are. They're just germ factories. Teachers are great in the summer. They go back to school and they get sick. Why? Because they're around all of these little angels who and then want to come and touch you. Really?
Right.
Um,
Right.
and it'll be hard. It's hard for them. And, by nature, young children seem to be more want a touchy feely, they want the hugs.
Right.
And as elementary teachers and personnel in the past, you were used to giving that child that hug because that was for some children, that
Yeah,
was as much a part of the educational system as teaching them the 3 R's, reading,
absolutely.
writing,
Yeah.
because they
Yeah.
needed that touch on the shoulder to go and put your hand on their back to say, baby, you got it, you're doing good. So even for teachers, I imagine it's difficult to, um,
Right.
your teaching style has to change. How do you think that will look for teachers?
It's very difficult, particularly at the early childhood and the elementary classes. I've talked to a couple of the teachers from my old school, and she's actually pre-K 3. And so she's really struggling with that. I mean, how do you tell them? Because they know COVID, they hear the word COVID, but they don't really know what that means. And so you have a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old running to you to hug you. They don't, how do you tell them I can't hug you? How do you tell them? How do you push a baby, away? My mother says, they too little to be at school anyway. They don't need to, they need to be at home at 3 years old. And, parents who, mamas who are 40, 50, and 60 years ago, they did. They believe that those babies are too young to be at school for this very reason. There are too many factors out there. So the teachers are really having a hard time building those connections and those relationships that they normally would with those kids. We walk around, with hand sanitizer. I wear a little apron so that I can keep tissue, hand sanitizer, and things like that, and handy wipes in my pocket, because you do have to be concerned. Gloves, and so we encourage, you know, teachers to do that. We certainly want to make sure that we're continuing to build a relationship with them. But we just all have to be very careful in how we're interacting with them and how we're interacting with parents, because they can carry the virus, and many cases, are not vaccinated. And so we're very careful about who we let in the building. So that has stopped. Where years ago when parents, it was a birthday and everybody, I'd bring cupcakes up for the whole class. Well, we can't do that anymore. You can bring cupcakes for your child, and that's it, just because we just don't, want to be a part of the spread of it. So, yeah, so teachers are very concerned in how they are handling kids, how they're having to handle kids. And we have on the campus where I am several mothers, young mothers, who have just given birth to babies, as well as a couple who are, pregnant now. And so they're very concerned about, touching and interacting with some of the kids, because they certainly do not want to carry that virus to, where it will affect their homes.
Another thing I think about from a long-term mental health perspective, we talked about how, the hugging and the touching for those younger kids is just not going to be
Yeah.
back. And what makes me wonder, 5 years from now, what will these children look like in terms of their socialization? And we have to prepare now, they will be socialized differently. Now, granted, not all children got the hugs they needed, but by and large, they knew they needed them. And those who got it, you learn to nurture by touch. And I have taught pre-K. I have been a pre-K a counselor in an all pre-K building, and they wanted and needed their hugs. Their
Right.
rewards were hugs.
Right.
You did a good job, you got a big hug from the teacher. Well, there's a
Right.
lot in a hug. The physical contact, from that skin to skin, physical contact is a very powerful thing. It releases that endorphins, that there's that comfort you get from just that touch. There is a
Mhm.
power in the touch. Will these children know the power of the touch? not the same way previous different,
Right.
even in their, they'll know it in their home, hopefully, but that's it. For those who don't know it in their home, how will, I'm thinking, how will they know the power of the touch? Looks like you wanted
Right.
to say something.
Research in the last year and a half has shown that the abuse level has increased.
Yes.
Dramatically has increased on adults,
Mhm.
domestic violence abuse,
Yes.
as well as children.
Yes.
So they're getting touched. They're just not getting touched in an appropriate way that shows them that they're valued and they're loved. And that is for many children, definitely not all, but for a small percentage of children, they don't get that loving validation
Yeah.
anywhere except for school.
Right.
And so when they don't get that, studies show that they become abusers themselves, because that's all they know. And that's how love was shown to them in a sense. And so that repeats that cycle. That's that generational curse that that I talk about. I think and that's why it's so important to have the social emotional learning that taking place in the classroom and in campuses, because we don't, for a year and a half, these kids have been at home and they're tired of parents and parents are tired of them. And there's only, so many things that you can do with your children, before you need them to go outside and play, or before you need to, and so we've not been able to do that. And so we're already seeing the effects of that in the classroom. We have to have physical touch, and so we're seeing, I have talked to grade levels all day today, literally. That's why I'm still here, because I did not get any work done today, because I'm constantly talking about the touching at the playground, the touching in the bathroom, the touching in the PE room, just, students hitting, pushing. It comes out, it's somewhere. If I don't get enough of something, it's going to show up somewhere else. And this is where it's showing up. These kids are inappropriately, not touching in a bad way, but just the
Right.
pushing, the hitting, the, that kind of the horseplay and that kind of thing, because they need that interaction and they've not had it in a year and a half.
And part
So
of it is they're just kids, like you say, the horseplay. Horseplay
right,
gets kids in more trouble. It starts one thing,
absolutely,
but the key word to that horseplay is play. And if you think about it, so many of them were home with mom or maybe with a small group of kids. And now I have all these people to interact with.
yes,
And
yes,
right, there's that touching, that pushing is not always an act of aggression. It is play
right,
sometimes. It is so often play.
mhm,
Even, you look at some of this stuff, it's not necessarily bullying. It's just we're playing. If I'm pushing you, and then you have the little boy girl thing, where the boy's going to push the girl he likes and vice versa as you get into the
right,
older, like your fifth graders. But it is all
yep,
about that touch that they don't have. And you're right. If I don't get it one way, I'll get it another. They need to reach out and touch. And they don't
right,
know how. Plus, I just want to go grab somebody. Why? Because I haven't been able to do it. I haven't been
uh-huh,
around this many people. Oh my gosh. So all these people
right,
around me. What do I do with that?
right, right. And that's exactly what we're seeing. I mean, exactly what we're seeing. And for the, older parents weren't taught to or allowed to hug and that kind of thing. They just didn't, that wasn't a part of their culture. Um, my grandfather, that wasn't a part of his culture, but for some reason, when he got to be 70, 80 years of age, is when he decided that he was gonna hug everybody. He was a hugger. He just hugged everybody. But um, so some people, that is not a part of their culture.
Mhm.
And so it's interesting how it's showing up in
Mhm.
the classrooms and in our, on our campuses, that students are just overly touchy-feely,
I think
just because they need that, naturally they need that interaction with people.
and just that
So
contact,
yeah,
it's
so
physical contact.
they just need that contact. Yeah, yeah. And so parents are upset sometimes because they come in and their child is not wearing a mask and they're fussing at the child. And I'm saying, that's, you have to, teach they're going to touch. I mean, we just can't keep them from that. So parents have to make sure that they are taking the steps that they need to educate their child at home to assist us with educating them as well.
I want to talk about the education deficits that are expected. I'll give you an example. I was talking to a child who was going to the third grade, and he was genuinely concerned that he was going to be behind because he didn't learn enough in second grade. And so he said, "Yeah, I probably failed third grade because I didn't get enough." And he went back to school when he could, when school was open, but he feels he's too behind. My thing to him was, you know what? You probably, yeah, not where you need to be, but you know what? You're not the only one. You probably half of your class is going to be behind. You may have or more. How are you guys addressing that on your campus, knowing that there are going to be some deficits? Because some kids were home all year, didn't do a thing. Others did minimal, or some, it just wasn't their modality to learn well. So how are you guys addressing that on your level?
So statewide, there is a House bill that's called HB 4545, I believe it is. And it's requiring us to do some additional tutoring for math and reading based off of their STAR tests and based off of their assessments. And so if their scores are below a certain amount, then they are required. We have to document it. We have to have a structured system that they will be in additional tutoring time. So I am very, very blessed to come into a campus who already has that in place. Even before TEA mandated, many schools knew already that these babies have lost a year and a half of education. Just like you said, some parents did great. They made sure that their babies still had some kind of structure. They made sure that they were interacting with them with the math and the reading and the language arts. They found, even if they didn't know anything, they found resources. They Googled things. There were some parents who, were able to do a few things. And then there were some parents who, for whatever reason, maybe it was their own insecurities and own ability level, that they were not able to. And then there are some parents, I'm just going to say it, they were just flat out lazy. They did not realize how this was going to impact them. They thought it was cute and fun that they were out of school, that these kids were out of school. They didn't have to do anything. And now these are the kids that's going to be taking care of us. And so we are putting them at a major disadvantage. So many campuses they already knew that this was going to be the year to have to try to bridge the gap and to make up for this deficit. So they embedded, like the campus where I am, we have what's called Tiger Time. And so there's additional training, additional tutoring. Not Parents don't have to, leave them here and come back to pick them up. It's embedded in the day already. We're also on Fridays, we're very fortunate in Terrell that they have an option to come to school on Friday, half day or full day. And so after 1 o'clock, those individuals who are still here, they have additional time, tutoring time, that they will be able to do some fun rotating things, but also reinforcing those objectives, those reading skills, those reading strategies, those math skills and strategies that they're going to need in the long run. So I'm very grateful that the campus where I am already had that in place. Some other schools are scrambling now because TEA is requiring that they have that to help bridge the gap. And they're making that mandatory. But parents, can so help us with that, because we can only do so much with them.
Right.
We cannot, this is additional time. So this is not time that's going to be taken away from the normal math, language arts, social studies, science that they already have to do, because they still have to be on that curriculum
Mhm.
timeline. But now we've got to do that plus play catch up and make up. So, parents being involved is the key. We cannot do this by ourselves. We have to have parents. We have to have parents to help us in turn, because we're seeing a lot of behavior problems. That's one thing, because kids, again, they've not been made to sit down for any period of time at home. They've been allowed to go to the refrigerator whenever they get ready. They can go drink water whenever they get ready. So we've got to now retrain children that you can't go to the bathroom every 5 minutes. And no, you can't get something to drink every 10 minutes, and no, we can't eat all day long. And some of these kids are really having a hard time with that. So in addition to trying to get them up to par academically, we're now dealing with the behavior and the social side of that, where they are, I've been at home with mama and daddy, or mama and daddy, mama or daddy, grandparent, whomever, and I've not had to have structure. So that's a barrier that's a challenge for us, having to do that. So just really trying to input some of those things that will address that, because if you can't get the behavior and the social side done,
You can't get the
the
academic.
academic side is a wash.
It is.
So this last week and this week, we're still working kind of on the behavior and making sure that they have what they need, while we're infusing those times to help bridge the gap with those areas. So yeah.
And it's not just on the elementary level. Let me speak to the up secondary. The same House bill has provisions for the upper grades as well. And so for instance, in the high school, they too are spending they're saying the first 6 weeks almost as a wash on every level, because it's going to take that long to get them used to being in school again. So part of it, yes, academics are still going forth, but a lot of it is you got to learn how to be in school, even your high schoolers, because a lot of the high schoolers who stayed virtual, you could pop in and pop out. And if you got the work done, the teacher was happy.
Right.
You showed up, you could be anywhere
Exactly.
to go to class, because you could go to class on your phone. It was virtual. You could show up. Some of the kids high school level had to go to work because mom, dad lost job during COVID. And so
Right.
high schooler could get a job and they were supporting it. And these are real stories. So you have a kid who would, whose manager was sympathetic, and they would log on to the beginning of each class and get attendance taken and did their work and pass the class. But if this is a high school junior, now they got to go back to sit in class. This particular kid, his mode was do the work, go check in, go to work, go check in, go to work. And so he had a structure, but it wasn't a structure that's conducive to education. Then you had some who could just sleep half the day. They go log in. Okay, I got to do. I'm gonna do it later, and go back to bed because they stay up all night. But the work would get done.
Yep.
So the upper grade kids, your high schoolers, were used to just getting it done. Many of them were successful, whatever that was, by just getting it done. And now it'll be difficult for them. But then in your middle schoolers, who are really your social butterflies, as I said before, they're my favorite. One hormone colliding into another, and they have those hormones to collide into. And now it's just like, oh my gosh, what do I do? They are overloaded because it is so stimulating to be around that many people again. And they haven't been around, even those who went back last year, they weren't in a room with 20 plus people. And now
Right.
all these people, and I got to look at you. So a lot of this first, really the whole first 6 weeks, they say the first month, but I'm saying first month to 6 weeks is training
Right.
you how to be a student again, how to
Right.
sit down in the elementary level, middle and high
Right.
school. You think high schoolers are used to sitting at a desk any more than elementary school kids? And no, because high schoolers did their work in bed.
Right.
A lot of
Absolutely.
them
Yep.
did their work.
And middle school. Yep.
Yeah, high school and middle school, they're in bed. And moms and
Yep.
dads were happy. If the work was getting done, parents didn't care
Right.
because, okay,
Right.
I'm going to enforce it and make you sit at a desk. Why? Because that was for them, parents who were working home, that was one more thing they had to do. I'm making sure you're
Uh-huh.
up and you have the work done. I don't care how you get it. And I can't
Right.
really fault them on that because the kids were passing the class doing what they need to do. But the
Right.
idea of knowing how to sit in a desk, get the work done in a 50 to 90 minute, whatever the
Yeah.
class time frame is. Oh, I got to do it in a time frame.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's foreign to them at this point.
hmm So I'm saying it's going to, and they know that the first 6 weeks is going to be really a lot of that training. It's more than a month. It'll be at least that first grading period is about as much about the academics as it is about learning how to be in school again
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
learning how to
You're
be in
right.
school under this, because how you're in school now is different from how you've ever been in school before, even if you went back, at the end of last
Mhm.
year. This is different because the
Mhm.
classrooms are full, the expectations are different, and it's just like, it's different. So they're having to not just learn to sit down and be in school and not touch, keep on a mask, but they have to learn
Right.
to be, there's a time limit on things. Not the same
Mhm.
time limit when you're at home. You can kind of fudge it, or you get sick and you can just, oh, I'm sitting here in my desk.
Right.
I'm gonna look at the ceiling. I can turn off my screen. You can't do this.
Right.
There's no screen to turn off.
Right.
Uh,
Right. And something else that you said, you made mention, and that is also a concern of the teachers, is the class size. So you're having these, small classrooms. I talked to a teacher not too long ago, not from Terrell ISD, but another school district, and she's got 40 kids in a room that's like 16 by 12. She
mhm.
how do you put 40 kids in a classroom that size and social distance? You know,
Well, there is no
you
social
can't do that.
distance with full
There
size
is no
classes.
social distance. Yeah, so that's the other thing with teachers is the class sizes and having to try to continue to be within guidelines of keeping them distant from each other. Yet the district is wanting to get as many as they can in these classrooms because they're trying to make up for the deficit.
Mhm.
So whether it's charter or public, that's a consistent concern, is we got to get butts in seats. And
Mhm.
so and how do we do that effectively, still making sure that we're considerate of COVID, that we're trying to make sure that children are safe and teachers and staff are safe.
And that's one that many people feel that's not even possible. I'm hearing that the safety is it, you can't be safe, not for real,
It's
because
not for
everyone's
real.
not going to wear a mask and you're going to be crowded. And if you think about it, once school starts, that's when everybody starts getting sick anyway, kids, parents, because the kids are bringing it home, and the teachers, your allergies, you're sneezing, you're coughing, you have this, you have bugs, you have this, kids have lice, kids have all these other things that happen
Right.
when you're in the crowded school environment.
Right.
Before COVID, all this happened.
Right.
So you
Yeah.
have just the normal stuff that happens, and now you add COVID on top of that. Even parents are sending their kids back. I heard one parent say, look, I am deluding myself on purpose. I know that I'm delusional. I'm telling myself every day my child is safe. And I know they need to go to school. So, yeah. And that's how some parents feel, and that safety is not really possible, from a health perspective.
Right. And unfortunately, people have to go back to work. And
Mhm.
so they can't they, and my heart goes out to them because they want to, just like we do, we want kids to be safe. We want to make sure that they're safe and they're in a safe environment. And, these teachers are doing a great job of making sure they do that. They're wiping desks in between every time the kids move. They're wiping desks. They're wiping supplies. They're keeping them, they're watching them and guiding them through the restroom and watching and making sure they're washing their hands. I mean, they are just doing an excellent job, but it's so hard, when you got to stop and clean desks 10 times throughout the day, just 5 minutes. If you take 5 minutes 10 times a day, that's still 50 minutes of instruction that we've just
Mhm.
lost. So this is really hard for teachers to, make sure they do that. Yes, we were doing some safety because I've heard that, well, they were doing, they should have been doing that anyway. Yeah, we were. Teachers were making sure they
Mhm.
washed their hands when they went to the restroom, but they're not having to take as many precautions as they
Right.
have in the past, and so I would hope that people would be a little bit more um, graceful and gracious, I guess, toward our teachers and our educators who are really, they're putting their lives on the line too every day. Coming to school with children who have not been vaccinated. So, I just, you
It's
know,
a scary thing. And you have some teachers who
it
did
is.
leave because they didn't feel safe. And I can understand that. I had a friend whose mother is, right around 90. And she lives, she's a caregiver for her mom and she was an elementary school teacher. So she didn't go back because
Right,
she didn't want to take anything home to her mom. So she temporarily
right,
left the field of education. I mean, these are some things that are true stories, and you understand it. There is no workaround.
right.
It is what it is. Um, yeah, this is what's really going on
Yeah,
in our
it
world.
is.
Believe it or not, we're just about out of time. That went so
Oh, wow.
quickly. Yes, I was looking
It
at the
did.
clock. I think we're coming up on that time. Yeah. We have a few minutes left, and I wanted to know if you could tell our audience, something about social emotional learning. That is something that you alluded to earlier, and I don't think people understand what that is. And I will tell you, as she talks about it, there are programs in elementary, middle, and high school. Could you just give us a minute or two about what social emotional learning is?
Absolutely. So in the world of education, we have
Mhm.
so many acronyms, and SEL is one of those acronyms that people are hearing now. We're throwing those acronyms around, and it simply means social emotional learning. And I know last year, one of the ways that, well, let me say this: social emotional learning is just what it says. It's teaching children how to cope and how to manage those particular skills, those social emotional feelings, and how they're doing, and what they're feeling like, and teaching them how to address it, how to recognize it, address it, and then manage it, providing them with coping skills to do that. And so, one of the things that I would do every week, and I probably need to start doing that with the staff here, but particularly, my kids, because everybody was virtual, and so it was easy for me to send out a little survey every Monday morning. How you feeling? Do you need to talk? Do you, is everything going okay at home? And from that, one, it's a private platform, so children felt comfortable about saying, hey, just checking in, I'm not doing good today, because not only was this devastating for parents who lost their jobs, who couldn't go to work, who in a financial crunch, but this was also devastating for children. They've lost their friends. They've not been able to communicate with their friends. Those babies who are social butterflies and have to have people, they didn't have that. And so we were able to kind of talk to some of those kids who were really drowning in this and really were in a state of depression because especially some of those higher achiever personalities, they felt like they just couldn't get a grasp on their education because they need that interaction with their teacher. And so emotional learning is just that, teaching these students how to deal with those emotions, what they need to do to recognize it, and how do you cope and deal with those particular things. And there's lots of different learning lessons and things that each teacher here on this campus, the teachers are required to do a social emotional learning every morning. So every morning as kids are coming in, we have that social emotional learning, that SEL lesson, and kids are able to talk about it. They're able to draw about it. However, that child feels like they need to release. Adults, they may journal. They may, do other things. We do meditation. We do, yoga. We do any of those things. We're kids, we now teach that to children as well, so that they have an outlet, so that they know how to recognize it. And I really, really think if we would really help kids on this end, we wouldn't see as many youth suicides that we're seeing. Yes. Where kids don't know how to cope. They don't know that they can come to Bronwyn Lucas's and talk to them about what they're going through and let them help, guide them out of that dark place that they're in. So you can always, parents can, go on Google, they can look up, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of social emotional learning activities that parents can utilize. I would encourage parents to go online and pull those things. Talk to your child about their emotions and how to control their emotions, and what to do about those emotions. And so that's one of the things that we do here on this campus.
Good, thank you, because a lot of people aren't even aware that that's something that schools do. And this is before COVID, social emotional learning. And I've been in education long enough to tell you, it's not really a new concept, it's a new name.
Comes back around.
Gosh, back in the early 90s, we had this thing called Project Charlie, and it was one of the social programs back then, which is the same thing we're doing now. But the good thing is you're not really reinventing the wheel, you're reinvigorating the wheel. A way of saying,
there you go.
We have to, because it will fall out of favor and we want to get, so just teach, and then it comes back up. No, we're more than just an academic mindset. You have to look at teaching the whole child, and teaching the whole child includes the emotional well-being. So we're back in that vein to understand. So fortunately, SEL was really coming back into favor before COVID. So most schools had a program in place prior to COVID. It is so needed right now, more than it was needed. It, became back in favor. So it's so good that it's there to help children get that. Yes.
Yeah, COVID just magnified it.
Yes.
It was already needed. It was there. Counselors were putting it in place, and districts were getting a hold of it. But when, so it was just kind of something that we knew we wanted to do. And then when COVID hit, okay, this is something that we've got to do now, and so the process speeded up, and it just became a bigger, it was much more needed at that particular time.
Yes. Yeah. And now we know we have to do it. We have to have it. Wow. As we wind down, we can talk about schools. We just barely scratch the surface. But I want to at least put some things on your mind. So if you're a parent, an aunt, an uncle, a neighbor, a friend, a church member, anyone who knows children or has children in your life, be able to be there for them this school year. I always end with a call to action, and my call to action this week is not going to be in the form of 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to be just in the form of a word of encouragement. And that is, be able to be there for the children. Understand that going back to school is going to be difficult for everyone concerned, for the school personnel, for the parent, for the child. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be different. No one knows really what to expect, and many have been in school for a week or so, and okay, we're back in school, we're good, and what does that mean? I have to sit down all day. I have to do this on any level, elementary, middle, and high, having to sit all day is a difficult thing. Be patient
Right.
with your children, parents. Be patient with your children's teachers and school staff. This is a difficult
Please.
time for everyone. Everyone's working through. There is no manual for going back to school after COVID. This is
Amen.
truly OJT, on the job training for the students to be a student again, for the administrators to be administrators, for the cafeteria workers to be cafeteria workers, for everyone. Because it's even the cafeteria rules are different in some schools. And how do you manage all of this?
Right.
You can't socially distance. So it's different for everyone. So be patient. Talk to your children about safety. If you believe in masks, which I think you should, I believe the science, especially for the younger ones who are not vaccinated, talk to your children about the importance of keeping on their mask. And here's another little thing. If you have elementary kids, send them to school with more than one mask. You know why? They can
Please.
take it off,
Please.
and then it's on the floor. You really want them to pick it up off the floor and put it back on. So if you have them, then great. You can buy them the cute little mask, and they have all these. Okay, they're not expensive anymore. Buy enough where they have several in their backpack, so they know if you drop it, if you lose it, go get another one.
Right.
So and even on the upper grade level, because they're gonna really take them off and put them on, take them off, put them on. I don't know they are, and if they're all wearing the same little blue, mask, is that yours?
Mhm.
Baby, don't guess. Just get another one out of it. So I encourage you to have your children have multiple masks with them daily, just
Right.
as a way of a safety precaution. I always like to say, and my last call to action is always be an educated voter. If you don't like what's going on in this state, use your power of your vote. Your vote has power. We have a show coming up in the fall, talk with people who are very active in the political scene, who are going to talk about how do you appropriately write a letter to your state and national representatives. Just what is that process like? So stay involved. Stay involved with your child's education. And as I said, if you're the aunt, the uncle, the neighbor, the church member, and you're a mentor to someone, find out how you can be involved. No, you're not going into the school now, but that's not the only way you can be involved. With respect to the
Absolutely.
social emotional learning, talk to your children about how they're feeling
Absolutely.
emotionally. If you or your
Absolutely.
child are in need of mental health help, reach out. I'm Bronwyn Lucas, the caring counselor. If you can look up Able Counseling and Consulting, and that's how you find me on the internet. You can Google me. You can Google my name; it'll even come up. But if I'm not the therapist for you, I'm not the therapist for everybody. No one therapist is. I will help you find the one that's right for you, because I
Mm,
believe that mental health is that important. Um,
absolutely.
before I end, Charlotte, is there a final word you'd like to have?
Just, parents, just be mindful and just, I guess, just ditto on what you said. Just be patient. Be patient with your teachers, be patient with your administrators, be patient with your child, because it's something that's different for everybody. And it's a struggle. It's a struggle, but we're going to make it. We're going to get through this. We're going to get through it together. We're just, it may take us a minute, but we can do this. We can band together, partner together, and make sure that that this whole process is one that's successful and that's efficient for everybody who's involved. So yeah, we're on your team. Just help us out to make sure that you are teaching those strategies, those tips to those children. If you're I have heard from so many parents, I don't know how to do that math. I don't know how to do that. And that's okay. If you will let us know, we can help you help your baby at home. We can give you some tips and strategies and things that you can just ask, whether you don't even have to let them know you don't know how, but we can give you the questions to ask to make them think you know. and they will, that will just, those things in itself will help them. Read with them, with your baby every single night. Read with them every single night. Those are just, some things that you can do to help them at home, as we're addressing the social, just making sure that the academic is taken care of as well. And reading will help every subject area. So that's all I have. I appreciate you. Thank you, Bronwyn Lucas, for allowing me to be on the show. And I love me some Miss Lucas. So just anything I can ever do, I am yours.
I love me some Miss Watson. When we ran into each other, I'll quickly tell this. I moved back to Dallas a few years ago, and we were both at an event where, okay, we both thought, well, maybe I'll go, maybe I won't go. And, nice, quiet, dignified event. And we saw each other and both went, ah, me too. So the whole room turns around and we didn't even care.
And then we stood there and talked for what, about an hour and a half?
Yeah, but and we were on our way out of the door. And an hour and a half later, we finally left. Yes, it was awesome. And then you just picked up like it was just when we met each other. So thank you so much for being a part of this discussion. And you'll see more of her this year. She's added to our education panel. And at least every other month, we're going to have our educators on talking. But we'll probably start sooner and do one again in September, just because, we'll be in that groove by then. So I want to end, as I always do, saying mental health is health. And I'm changing it. Black mental health is Black health. So let us remain healthy. I will see you guys in 2 weeks.